Okay, so I begin with a German architect. Well, she was part German too. She was part German, part Dutch. But Dominikus Zimmermann was from Bavaria, and that's where he lived, and there he worked together with his brother. So he died on November 16th. And so, a few words about him. So, he was born in Gaze Point near Wesselbrunn in 1685 and became a Baumeister, meaning an architect, and a stuccoist. His older brother, Johannes Baptist Zimmermann, was an architect and a frescoist. Anyway, working together, they produced masterpieces such as the Church of Steinhausen. Dominikus Zimmermann descended from a family of artists and craftsmen belonging to the so-called Wesselbrunner school, worked first as a stuccoist and later as a master builder and architect. He lived in Landsberg am Lech, where he was mayor between 1748 and 1753. He died near the Pilgrims Church in, I don't know very well how to pronounce this short word, I don't know German to my shame, Wies, near Steingarten in 1766. I had some problems with him because the churches he built are so similar that I got very confused, and even the name of the city is very similar. He built in two cities, two different churches, and the names of the cities are very, very close to each other, and the looks of the churches as well. But this is the handsome Dominikus Zimmermann, and you see there are interesting people that we never learned about in school. He was a very accomplished Rococo architect, and the interiors of his churches are truly remarkable, maybe a little more than the exterior. This was the first work that I found that he built, but I couldn't find pictures with it. So we'll go to the next one, the Old Town Hall and the church. I only found pictures of the Old Town in Landsberg am Lech. And so from 1719. So he was 34 years old when he built this Old Town Hall, which is still standing. And this is it. And, you know, out of a flat facade, he was able to make a building that stands out. Why? Because of the bidimensional art, because of the pictorial art, you know, the decorative art, which made the building stand out. Of course, it's not just the painting, but, you know, ornamentation did have a role, and I think our buildings today are deprived of this luxury most of the time to work in a more sensitive way, you employing ornaments, because as you know, the ornament was banished from modern architecture, and it wasn't just Adolf Loos who wrote, you know, almost violently against it. Although Adolf Loos, as you know, he employed ornaments himself, not directly, not explicitly, but he used very rich in texture and decoration, organic, natural materials like marble. And so did Miss van der Rohe in the Barcelona pavilion, you know, which appears to be so simple and so on. Well, he uses very expensive materials and with a very obvious ornamentation, you know, stones with a very rich decorative pattern. But in this case, you know, the ornament was you know, part of the aesthetics of the time. And I think the ornament is coming back now with great strength. And still, in some more orthodox schools of architecture, is not talked about, but some of the most interesting architects today work with the ornament. Not in this way, in other ways. After all, even the works of, parametrics, or let's say some works by Zaha Hadid are rather ornamental in nature, but a different kind of ornament, an ornament that became structure, and the structure became ornament. And the whole building is an ornament in a certain way, in three dimensions. But at that time, but you see, if you compare the buildings on the left with the buildings on the right, meaning the building in the center, which is the city hall, it stands out. And not only because it is taller, but because mainly of its ornamentation. Otherwise, I mean, if you would have ornated the buildings on the left and the right in a similar way, you would have said that maybe the same architect built all of them. Um, the tension between structure and ornament is a real one, but they need each other. And I put it in this way, maybe a little bit simplistically, but I think a building that which has only structure and it has no ornament is like a tree only with a trunk and the branches, but no foliage and no flowers in the spring. And that would be a rather, almost depressing tree. But we are still obsessed by structure. In the schools of architecture here, everybody talks about the structure, the structure, the structure, but no one even mentions the word ornament. And you need both structure and ornament. Even from the studio of Zaha Hadid, Patrick Schumacher, in a presentation he made recently, he stated clearly, structure and ornament should come together. But, Orthodox modernism is still reluctant to accept this, unfortunately. Anyway, but these ornaments do add richness to the building. Even a flat facade, a flat wall becomes richer because of ornamentation. On the other hand, I understand why modernism fought against the ornament, because it was tired of the eclecticisms of the 19th century, because it was, especially after the First World War, it was a quest for a fresh new beginning, for more honesty, for a new society, because the fight against the ornament also meant envisioning some kind of a new society, less prone to the influences of the past, meaning the 19th century, the imperial culture, and so on. But it is coming back, and I think it is a normal phenomenon that, for example, in a few days, I will talk about a very interesting but very provocative and very sometimes even disgusting, if I'm allowed to say to use such a non-academic word, architect from the United States who teaches at Yale University. He's still rather young, Mark Foster Gage, who employs ornament in an unbelievable ways. So it will be his birthday in this month, in November, and I invite you, if you want, to a presentation about him, just to show you how powerfully the ornament is coming back to architecture. And I'm talking about a young architect, approximately young, and teaching in a very important school. So, Mark Foster Gage, Gage. Okay, now we see this with this church. I had troubles because you see it's Steinhausen, but then it's Schusen-Ried. I'm not saying that the words are identical. They are not, but they are they almost have the same number of letters and they both begin with S. So I got a little bit confused. And also, I think I'm not the only one who got confused because the images of the inside are so similar that I didn't know any longer which interior belonged to which of the two churches. It's plus, the work is so covered with ornaments that it's really difficult to understand if you are in a hurry, if you are in this building or that building. Apparently, he built and decorated these buildings together with his brother, who was also, he was an architect and frescoist, meaning he did frescoes, while Dominikus Zimmermann was doing stucco and was also a builder. Interesting people, but and you see the ellipse, of course. The ellipse is unavoidable when you talk about the Baroque and the Rococo and so on. It's a reaction to classicism. It's a reaction to the perfection of the circle. As you know, the ellipse is the result of using two circles, so two centers. So it's, the ellipse is a little bit scandalous for, the need for certitude, which, for example, the circle is so plainly and powerfully satisfying. But the Baroque mentality needed instability, and as such, the ellipse was better suited. I actually admire, I always abhorred Rococo art or architecture because I thought it was too heavy and too, in a way, too syrup-like and too lascivious and too, I don't know, too heavy. Yes, like a heavy birthday cake. But I began to change a little bit because I think I even made a presentation on, I called it Watteau's architecture. Watteau was a great Rococo French painter. In certain cases, the Watteau aesthetics or the Rococo aesthetics were actually promoting musicality. It was about the music of aesthetics, to light, airy, flying. So gravity was challenged through this, light flamboyance of forms. It remains to be seen. It's also, in a way, the feminization of architecture. But it's just like a tree in flowers and with leaves in the spring. The Baroque and the Rococo art is blooming, and being so is, an assertion of life and of a certain form of sensitivity. The exterior of the church is though less ornamented. And again, I continue to be confused because there are two churches that are very similar, and I still don't know which one is which and where it is situated. Anyway, they are very similar, both the interior and the exterior. But I do think Rococo art and Rococo architecture could be maybe even more than acceptable if we get rid of the dogmatic understanding of what is good in architecture that we learn through the prisms and dogmas of modern Orthodox architecture. But even the Rococo mentality is coming back because of the new technologies we have, because of the softwares, because of Maya, because of scripting and programming, parametrics, and so on. So it's all about fluidities. Zaha Hadid, for example, published 2 books, Total Fluidity and Fluid Totalities, with the work of her students in Vienna, covering about 20 years of, she ran a studio at the Institute of Architecture in Vienna. Anyway, but we are now in the 17th, 18th century with Mr. Dominikus Zimmermann. And, this is the work of his brother, I guess. He was the frescoist. I guess they worked well together. Anyway, this is another church, Church of Our Lady in Günzburg, from 1735 and 1740. So when they built this church, Piranesi was, when they started to build this church, Piranesi was 15 years old. He was born in 1720, exactly 300 years ago. I mentioned Piranesi because, it's an important year for in relation with him. And also yesterday I meant to talk about him and I didn't. Now I feel guilty. Anyway, so, towards the outside, maybe the shape of the windows has some reference to, what we call Baroque and what we might call also Rococo. But otherwise, the walls are not very adorned. But the windows are, whimsical, and I think why not? Why should the windows be just, rectangles or squares? Why? Lina Bobardi, and it will be her birthday in December, on the 5th of December, and I can't wait to make a presentation about her. She used even irregular kind of windows, and none was repeating the shape of another one. You will see them. Anyway, maybe Frank Lloyd Wright was right that it would be easy to do architecture if you didn't have to create windows or to put windows in the walls. Yeah, the window could be problematic in the sense, how do you do it convincingly so it doesn't look capricious? But look at these windows here, so they are really formal gestures, and why not? The interior, yes, is musical, is Rococo, but I don't think is a tiring interior. At least, from what I see in this picture, and I regret it's not in colors. So you see, even if the theorist or the theoretician is trying to convince us that certain forms of art or architecture are not viable any longer, I'm not convinced about it because, there are, I think, constants of the human spirit, and it doesn't matter you are in the 18th century or in the 21st century, certain dispositions of the human soul or the human mentality or the human mind are kind of repeating themselves on the spiral of time. Certain art is more austere, another art is more sensuous. So I think we could perhaps talk even about present day Rococo architecture and art. Now this is the church. You see Steingarten, it's very similar, the name with the other one, and they even look alike, and I'm even afraid now that it's actually, I'm showing you the same building. And it was built, 10 years later or something like this. I actually think this one is the first one, but I couldn't find, I don't know, I'm still confused. And I think the information on the web is also very puzzling. Anyway, is this the same church or not? Somehow I have a feeling in the previous church I didn't see something like this. So it might be that this is a little bit different. Anyway, they built two churches. Well, they built three churches, but they're very similar. Anyway, the interior is as it is in the previous one. Sorry for the resolution of the pictures. But you see how important, how powerful the bidimensional intervention is. You know, if you try to make abstraction of it, you get a very different building, although the physicality of the building remains absolutely the same. So, you know, the pictorial arts, frescoes or whatever they are, they do have the capacity to amplify certain things and to dilute other things in terms of meaning as well. You know, this ability to destabilize architecture through the pictorial art is real. So, you know, it is a form of doing architecture that is not very common these days, but I think employing again the talent of the plastic artists, of whatever they are, sculptors or painters, would create richer environments. And yeah, perhaps we should do it again. And they need us and we need them. Again, without the pictorial art, what would this building be like? You know, it would be a little different, if not significantly different. Now, of course, the minimalist would protest. The minimalist would say, wait a minute, I can't take this. But not everybody has the disposition, the taste of a minimalist. And why should minimalism be the only aesthetics? It shouldn't. Once I wrote a little kind of a poem, very little, and I will recite it for you. Many times, less is less. A few times, less is more. Many times, more is less. A few times, more is more. Well, I guess what I wanted to say is that, we have many buildings where less is actually less. And only in the case of a few architects like, let's say, Mies van der Rohe or John Pawson, and there are a few others where the less becomes more because of the abilities of the architect. On the other hand, there are many buildings where more is less. But there are a few, those of the talented Baroque or Rococo architects or the Mannerists, where more is actually more. So it all depends on the abilities of the creator and the specific conditions of the work at hand. Today I looked through a magazine, the Japan Architect that I have in the house, and I discovered, actually, I looked through that magazine before, but I discovered some very important works by Tadao Ando, for example, and they seem to me actually to be poor. I mean, I don't think his architecture is so, also it depends how it is presented. But this is a serious magazine, the Japan Architect, and Tadao Ando is Japanese, so he was presented properly. But somehow, all those concrete walls, never ending, always there, yes, sometimes he is able with light to create beneficial situations. But I'm surprised. How come he didn't get tired of it? Of this. I mean, if you look at this building, okay, you might say it's too much. It's just too much. It is excessive. But just to put this building near just what you see here, this image, with an image of, let's say, a building by Tadao Ando. Would you really say that the one by Tadao Ando is undisputably much better? Why? Here there is, a different form of architecture, different form of aesthetics, but I wouldn't call it, less or inferior. Is a very different sensibility, but I don't know. I think we need also richness. Anyway, we can talk about it about some other time. Maybe to compare minimalism with Baroque or with, I don't know, even Rococo. Well, I kept saying, I kept asking myself, about the evaluations in the architecture school. The professors are so at ease to give grades very scientifically, very precisely. I couldn't do it. For example, if you had the evaluators, if you had a minimalist and a Baroque, or if you had, let's say, Gaudi and Mies van der Rohe. Now, Mies would choose works probably that are kind of similar to his aesthetics, and Gaudi would do the same. But you wouldn't say that one was right and the other one was wrong. The minimalist would not choose, the aesthetics promoted by Gaudi and vice versa. I actually saw the works submitted to a competition in Japan where the evaluators, the judges, were Jean Nouvel and Tadao Ando. And there were several hundreds of works, many works, and some very interesting. But what was very interesting is that Jean Nouvel chose 10 projects and Tadao Ando chose 10 projects, but they didn't choose not even one single project together, the same project. And we cannot accuse Tadao Ando or Jean Nouvel of being unserious or capricious. No, but they are different kinds of architects, and they chose, normally I would say, what pleased them. So I don't know how you can give grades in this way, because if you are a minimalist, you would not like Rococo probably. And if you have Rococo tendencies, you wouldn't like minimalism. So I think the evaluations in architecture are not just objective. In fact, I would say many times they are subjective, at least to an extent. So I don't know how professor can give grades so easily. It's really a very subjective enterprise. But if you do something like this today in a school of architecture here, you would be considered mad. But, again, why a straight white wall is better than what we see here?